Right now at Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory, save 50 to 70% off everything in stores and online. That's right, 50 to 70% off everything. Celebrate the 4th with dresses from $19.99 at Banana Republic Factory. And at Gap Factory stores, tees start at $4.99. Plus, save an extra 40% off clearance. Sale ends Tuesday. Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.
Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and you're listening and or watching No BS Hiring Advice Radio. I say watching because I do it as a simulcast, as a Google Hangout. And it's a time where I like to spend about 15 minutes speaking with you about some element of staffing. Now, I'm hoping that by next week I can get rid of the headphones and just record a video, strip out the audio, and upload it to Blog Talk Radio. You know, frankly, I realize how goofy this sounds. I think they're capable of taking an MP3 from me, and if they can, we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. But in the meantime, it's me and my microphone here with my headset. We're doing this as an audio. And I also want to apologize. Last week, I attempted to do an upload. I couldn't do it. I had recorded a video to use, and I'm going to see if I can do that during the week. So you may get a second instance of the show during the week. And if it's confusing, I apologize. I'm doing my best. So No BS Hiring Advice Radio is brought to you by Audible. And if you go to audibletrial.com/The Big Game Hunter and sign up for a free trial of Audible, you'll get a free audiobook as part of that trial. And I know you like audio. You listen to this podcast. You listen to Job Search Radio, my flagship show, or No BS Job Search Advice Radio. All in all, I know you like audio. So give Audible a try, I should say, by going to audibletrial.com/The Big Game Hunter. So this is a show where I talk about some of the things smart companies do when they're hiring. Some of these things your firm may be doing, and you may be doing yourself, but most don't. And I'll simply say, let's take a look at some of these things that smart firms do. Many firms obviously use an applicant tracking system. And what smart firms do is they have the system properly calibrated for each job. You see, the classic complaint about applicant tracking systems is the classic black hole description that firms, the job hunters use. Sorry, I got distracted for a moment. Instead, think of it, and I'll simply say, what happens is you wind up turning people off. And thus, one of the other complaints that people have about ATSs is that it stands for avoiding talent systems. Calibrating your system properly per job will go a long way toward it not being a black hole, where the intelligence in your system properly identifies people and properly rejects people. So start by calibrating your ATS properly for each job. Now, with that, another thing they do is when a job description is created. Now, this doesn't matter if you use an ATS or a hiring manager is developing a specification. They have a clear description of what they're looking for. Now, I want to say a clear description is not having 25 requirements and 55 responsibilities. Most jobs, when you look at them, maybe have 5 or 6 requirements. That is, things that people do each day. And they have other things that they may do infrequently that are far less important. They have responsibilities that properly align themselves with what someone is going to be doing in most circumstances. Instead of having these buffet menus that you're working from, Instead, have a proper job description with a good description of what someone's going to be doing day in and day out. You can add on something by saying, infrequently you may be asked to do such and such, or we'll consider it a plus if you have experience with such and such, and we'll use it as a tiebreaker. What happens in most cases is these descriptions with the 25 requirements, you start looking for all 25 people. The job description remains open far longer than it needs to be. You're wasting money interviewing people way too long, way too often. So narrow down what you're looking for. The next thing is the hiring team is real clear about what they're there to evaluate for. Part of getting things narrowed down is getting the team on board with what they're going to be there to evaluate for. And if they're left to their own devices without any sort of direction about what they're there to interview for, you get a mess. And much the same thing of people being interviewed too many people get interviewed for way too long before a decision is made. I had someone interview for a job this week. He's going to head up a data governance role for a large firm. So they introduce him to someone on staff who probably is resentful that he or she, I don't want to identify gender, isn't being considered for the role. So they ask stupid questions like, who do you read? This can be a good question, but when the person responded with not just simply the mainstream stuff in governance, but some of the extraordinary people that he knows about, the interviewer, who was a staff level person, said, I don't know who these people are that you're reading, and made it seem like they were incompetent or doing something wrong. Don't do that. Get clear about what your expectation is that you want a staffer to evaluate for. So, I also want to say that the staff isn't only to blame for these mistakes. Hiring managers do the same thing. And in doing so, they don't develop standardized questions about interviewing, and they go through these ad hoc things based upon what they see in the resume at the time of the interview. After all, most hiring managers do nothing to prepare, have created no standardized questioning, and thus bias gets in the way. And the result is you turn off and reject a lot of people you don't need to reject. Deal with the basics of the job. Don't go for the extraordinary situations until you have the tiebreakers. Another thing that they do is they recognize that they're not really capable of evaluating for fit. As a matter of fact, they like teams that are not homogeneous. So when you have a homogeneous team, there develops to be a groupthink, and the groupthink generates average or mediocre. So the teams that hire extraordinary like conflict. They're people who may be in conflict, respect others. They respect the manager to make the right choice. And as a result, rather than being homogeneous and basically looking for people just like them, they're willing to take on not just simply Susans and Jameses, but Hongs and Ramseys and people who are different. Now, why do I think it's important to go non-homogeneous? Well, there was an interesting statistic I saw that basically said, well, let me just say that managers are not equipped to evaluate for fit. After all, I'm a guy with a master's degree. I've done institute training. I've facilitated thousands of pieces of psychodrama work. I'm an unusual individual, but I know your hiring managers are not giving out industrial or behavioral psych tests. So these are firms that don't take into consideration predictive indexes. They don't take into consideration these sort of, allegedly objective criteria that are completely subjective. So I'll just say that the smart firms basically look for qualifications. And the smart firms get real clear and focused. And when they find the right person, they act on them. They don't go shopping to see whether the next 25 bright, shiny objects walking in the door, the next 25 people might possibly be better. Good enough is. So they keep it real simple. And what they do is they hire that which fits. Nothing more, nothing less. So smart firms also embrace the recruiters that they work with from third parties. And instead of keeping them at arm's length, they teach them what they're looking for instead of pushing them away. When firms send a job description to me and don't communicate, I know I'm going to waste my time and I'm going to chase my tail. And I'm going to be guessing what it is that they're looking for. Don't make them guess. Give them clear information. Teach them how you evaluate and assess. And you're going to be hiring better people. Another thing that good firms do is when they get a referral of someone from their own staff, they don't give them a pass. Social proof doesn't demonstrate that the person's qualified. Your staffer may not know exactly what it is you look for in someone. And even if they allegedly do, they really don't. So instead of following social proof, maybe you let them in the door, but you qualify them just as hard as a stranger. Another mistake people do is they trust their first impressions. And instead of doing that, you have to always go through all the details of the job and all the standardized questions in order to ensure that everyone is evaluated in the same way and bias doesn't rear its ugly head. Smart firms check references religiously and in great depth. Instead of doing these, hi, would you rehire this person? Well, how many times have you ever heard that they wouldn't rehire? Talk to the hiring manager who's given as a reference in detail about what your job is and whether or not they see them as qualified. Yes or no? Why not? Why yes? What they might have done previously that relates to it. And you're going to get much more information, just like the smart firms do. Lastly, the smart firms treat corporate recruiting as valuable individuals rather than idiots and bozos. I hear too many stories from corporate recruiters where they've got this enormous portfolio of jobs to fill, and hiring managers are yelling at them because they're not finding enough people for them. And they say, you've got LinkedIn, what's the problem? Well, the problem is not everyone wants to talk about the job. They may be happy where they are. So I'll simply say, instead of treating your HR staff like bozos and incompetent, treat them with respect. And instead of reporting them to their boss, who basically brings them in and says, what's the problem? They tell them, and they say, look, just send them an email every once in a while with what you're doing. I'll simply say, treat them with respect. They deserve it. So those are some of the things the smart firms do. And I hope you see some value for your organization. I'll just say that I'd like to be one of those people that your firm reaches out to help with staffing. Most of my work in recent times is now involved with cybersecurity. So if you happen to be trying to fill cyber positions, I'd love to help you. If there are other things in technology that you need help with, I can certainly help as well. So call me at 646-374-8656 or email me at jeffaltman@thebiggamehunter.us. I'd love to help your firm staff positions. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, send a connection request at linkedin.com/IN/the-big-game-hunter. I accept connection requests from people worldwide, except if you look like a spammer or scammer, except if you're a third-party recruiter. Also want to mention that there's a lot more at my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. There's stuff that you can watch, listen to, or read. There's going to help you find people more quickly. So again, visit the website. I'd love to help you. So I'm Jeff Altman. Hope you enjoyed today's show. I'll be back next week with more No BS hiring advice. Take care.
You're a business owner.
Check.
You have business owner's insurance.
Check.
And 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been enough. Today, small businesses are being targeted and taken down by hackers. Medical offices, consultants, CPAs, any business that's built success has everything to lose. You probably have cybersecurity installed on your computer.
Check.
But you probably don't have cyber insurance. Coverage against loss and damage if your data is compromised. Cyber Policy covers that gap. Cyberpolicy.com shops the leading cyber insurers to find you the right policy at the right price to avoid a catastrophe. Coverage against loss and damage if your data is compromised. Get a custom quote today in just 4 minutes. And for a limited time, use the promo code BLOGTALK to get Norton's small business protection for up to 5 devices. Free when you sign up for cyber insurance. Plan, prevent, insure. Visit cyberpolicy.com. That's cyberpolicy.com.
Right now at Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory, save 50 to 70% off everything in stores and online. That's right, 50 to 70% off everything. Celebrate the 4th with dresses from $19.99 at Banana Republic Factory. And at Gap Factory stores, tees start at $4.99. Plus, save an extra 40% off clearance. Sale ends Tuesday. Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.